one thing I notice is that if you just keep telling a teacher who's been trained in the way that you just described, you should get kids to do things they're really interested in. You should loosen the reins a little. You should make the day a little more fluid, whatever. They don't listen because you're just giving them another set of instructions that might or might not replace the ones they've already been given. But there are two questions you can ask most teachers who actually like kids, and that's most teachers, I'm glad to say. There are two questions you can ask that often are very powerful. One is to ask them what their real, deep down in their heart of hearts, what's their goal for children educationally? Because no one will say that their goal is to get children all over the neighborhood or the state or the country to do math facts super quick, or to spell a lot of words well, or to learn how to identify the most important sentence in a paragraph. Because if people think about who's really well educated in their own lives, they will never say, my Uncle Noah, because he can do a math minute better than anybody I know, or he can diagram a sentence like hell. If people don't think of that as what it means to be well educated or to be an informed citizen, they'll say, my Uncle Noah, because he's so thoughtful, or he's so open to new experiences, or he really knows how to put together information from different sources and come up with a new idea. So if they begin to think about what the real goal of education is, or my Aunt Marlene, because she really knows how to listen to people and think from other people's perspective, another thing we value in the abstract. But if teachers get in touch with what they really think the goal of education is, and you work backwards from that, you say, okay, or maybe you have a more modest goal. Maybe you're a first grade teacher and in your heart of hearts, your goal is to get kids to love reading. So if you work back, that's a great goal, because it turns out if you love reading, the doors of schools are open to you forever. And there's no limit to what you can learn on your own if you love reading. So let's say that's a really great goal for a first or second grade teacher. If that's your goal and you work back from that, you will often see that the things you're actually doing again and again, day after day, are not things that will lead kids to love reading. If you think about, well, what does get a kid to love reading? Acting out stories, hearing stories read to them, having really good books. And the biggest number one thing is having a chance to actually read and enjoy the books that you're reading. If you think, okay, so if a love of reading is my goal, and this is what we know from psychology are the steps. Oh, I left out the most important one. The biggest, most important factor in loving reading is, to begin with, the chance to have extended conversations. So if you thought to yourself, okay, so if I'm a really great first grade teacher, I will give my students a lot of chance to have a conversation. Suddenly that makes sense, because you think, well, we know that's what leads to reading. And we know that the real purpose of kindergarten and first grade, or kindergarten through second grade, is to get kids to be readers. Suddenly what seemed like a radical, crazy idea doesn't seem that radical or crazy. It seems like the best path to achieving your goal. So that's one question you can ask, is what's your real goal here? And then to work backwards from that. The other thing that I think works incredibly well, and I've seen it happen, I've seen it look like someone was turning a light on in their brain, is when you ask teachers, and again, it's important that they love kids. If they don't love kids, none of this is going to work. But if they love kids and you ask them to think about the times in their classroom when kids are trying their hardest and really engaged and going through some kind of change, understanding something that they didn't understand, able to do something they couldn't do before, working at a higher level than they have previously, they will begin to identify the times in the day that are not necessarily what they've been told to do with students, but the times when kids are doing things that matter to them, that seem to have meaning, that captivate children as real children, captivate them the way that they really are, as imaginative, as physical, as social beings. And they can build on that. I had a teacher, I wrote about this in my most recent book. I had a teacher write to me. This was high school, and he was talking about, I think he might have been a physics teacher, and he taught really like the high level classes in his school. But he said the kids, they're just doing it because they were told they have to, or because they want to get a good score on their AP or whatever. He said, but I watch them after school in the after school program that I teach. And that's when they're most engaged. Then I can't stop them. They love it so much. I think it was a robotics class or something. And he said, what do I do? And I said, bring that into the school day. If you know that's what makes the kids work their hardest and think their best, why wouldn't you do that during the day? And he said, okay, I will. But it just took getting him to think about his own experience and his own observations of children. I mean, nobody knows kids as well as teachers do. And nobody has the teacher's repertoire for thinking of things that are going to be engaging and challenging to kids. It's more a matter of letting them use that in the classroom. And too often they're not allowed to use their wealth of expertise and knowledge of kids.